Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. Today's episode is the Guest of Cookies Past. I will be talking with people who have been involved with the podcast in the past year. With me right off the bat is somebody who was last on a regular episode of the podcast on January 23rd on the episode called Semi-Famous. He was last heard on the podcast in April on the stand-up show called Comedy at the Diesel 2. He was the very first guest I ever introduced on the podcast. He is the very first guest I'm introducing on this episode. He is Gary Henry. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. It's hard to believe how far the podcast has come since that first episode that we did together.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I think that was the most people I ever had in one room for an episode, too. Because most people don't know this, but you were here. Mama Kate and her husband, Andy, were here. And then my friend Keith was checking the levels as we were recording. And then my friend Rod was just sitting in to watch.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of people for just one episode where only 3 people were going to talk.
Yeah, right.
So what have you been up to, man? How's stand-up treating you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Trying to keep busy, just doing as much as I can. Like the other day, I had a show at a nursing home. That was pretty different for me.
Yeah?
It was kind of weird when I first walked in because, nobody was smiling or paying attention to me, or I don't even think half of them realized why I was even there, but it was a little weird. Everybody was kind of standoffish and territorial. And then one of the ladies that worked there, one of the nurses, told me that was just their mentality. They were kind of territorial and private, and they really didn't care for outsiders, unless it was family. She's like, kind of like a gang mentality. And I'm thinking a gang mentality, that's great. I'm going to be performing for some geriatric gangsters, But it was cool, though, I just kind of wondered, how do they treat the new arrivals? Gang mentality, do they jump them in with a mean game of checkers,
I would like to see that. They come in and they got their walkers. They just start surrounding them. Some guy comes in with a cane.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool. They warmed up to me. We had a great time, and after the show, I talked to a lot of them. And this one little old lady, she just wouldn't leave me alone, though. And I swear she pinched my cheek so many times it hurt to sit down.
It's a good thing you were there for stand-up, huh?
Yeah, right?
Well, after we end this episode, Gary and I will be recording things for future episodes that will be airing if something comes up and I can't do a show. That way there shouldn't be any gaps in the podcast release. I almost want to take a show or two off just to air those episodes. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. I'll give you a sneak peek at one of those episodes. At the podcast stand-up show, there was a pretty shocking moment. I don't want to talk too much about it right now. We'll be going over that in detail in one of those episodes I just mentioned. That particular episode will be the most shocking moments on the podcast. But have you ever had anything like that happen to you since?
Yeah, I don't think I've really had anything.
It would be hard to beat that.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll be going over that story in an episode that'll be coming out in the future. So if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe, because that story alone is worth subscribing to the show. It'll be a good one. Well, you said that you had an interesting story that happened to you yesterday at work. You want to get into that?
Yep. I'm a delivery driver. I had my very last delivery, and it was like a 300-pound massage chair. And this lady opened the door. She's like, "Oh, you have my massage chair?" "Yeah, I bought that for my son," who, side note, is 16 years old. She bought it for her son because he just started working at CVS and was complaining about his back hurting. And
I was going to say, that's a pretty good gift for a 16-year-old. I would like to have it. You don't really need it at that age.
Right, yeah.
But then when you throw in the fact that he thinks he needs it for something, it makes me wonder what other stuff that she's bought him just for the hell of it,
Right, yeah. But a massage chair because he's working at CVS and his back's hurting. It's like, I remember when I was that age, I had a bunch of different jobs. Like, I was baling hay and I had my own landscaping company and just a bunch of stuff like that. And I remember the only thing my parents gave me was an IOU. Because where I'm from, if you worked, it was to help out the family. I never had any Nikes or $100 pair of designer jeans or anything like that. I mean, hell, I got picked on in the 8th grade because I only had 2 pairs of pants. I had brown corduroys and inside out. Yeah.
It looks like if you were having back issues, CVS would be the perfect job for you. Because you could just buy a back brace right there, get some ointment for pains.
Absolutely.
You're set. What do you need that for?
Yeah, sneak into the pharmacy when nobody's looking, grab some pills or something.
There you go. Well, Gary, I have a scenario from my friends over at the This or That podcast. I'll have a link in the show notes where you can listen to them. The scenario is, would you rather talk to your kid about sex, or would you rather have to go through the sex talk with your parents?
Well, considering that I never really had the sex talk from my parents, I don't really know what that's like. But I think, honestly, I'd rather give the sex talk to my kid because, I don't know, I'd make it a little funny, I guess.
Yeah.
Add some humor so it wouldn't be as embarrassing for me. Of course, it's going to be embarrassing for him, but.
I got to agree with you because my mom tried to give me the sex talk. It was a little too late. I already pretty much knew. But at the time, she told me to make sure to use a rubber. And that grossed me out so much. I would never, ever want to go through that again. Because even back then, calling it a rubber was really out of date. And I think she was trying to hip it up.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'd have to say to give the sex talk would be best.
I did overhear something my mom told my sisters because our bedrooms were across the hall from one another. And one day I heard my mom telling my sisters that any girls that use tampons are sluts.
Really?
Yeah. And I always thought that was kind of weird because in my mind, a girl who is a slut has sex with no strings attached. So it really didn't make any sense at the time. But yeah, that's, as far as the sex talk, that's the only thing that I remember.
Well, is there anything you want to promote before you go?
Yep. I'll be hosting all weekend at Wiley's Comedy Club in Dayton, Ohio, December 29th, which is a Friday, December 30th, 2 shows. I'll be hosting for headliner Melissa McQueen.
All right, man. I want to thank you for being on the show. It was a lot of fun. Well, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll be joined by Elsie Escobar.
It's the festive season. There's singing and shopping and joy. Santa's talking to children. The elves are wrapping toys. The season's one of charity, of peace for all you've met. But though I should be giving right now, I just want to get. It's Christmas time, and times are tough. It's Christmas time, and I ain't got enough. Hey, Mr. Santa Claus, I believe in you because last year all my parents got me was a trip to Mississauga. It's Christmas time, I'm looking for a lot of stuff. My brother wants a computer. My sister wants a dolly. My mom wants a brand new bathtub. And my dad just wants alcohol. He spent last Christmas wasted, crawling along on his knees, eating turkey that fell on the floor, and watering our Christmas tree. It's Christmas time, and times are tough. It's Christmas time, and I ain't got enough. Hey, Mr. Santa Claus, I believe in you because you got more credibility than any doctor, cop, or lawyer. It's Christmas time, I'm looking for a like a new guitar. And Andy wants a radar detector. Trevor wants 13 kittens. And Chris wants a date with Shania. We compared all our Christmas lists, and only one thing overlapped. We would all be happiest if everyone bought our crap. It's Christmas time, and times are tough. It's Christmas time, and we ain't got enough. Hey, Mr. Santa Claus, we believe in you, because if we con on our so-called friends, our Christmas stockings will be empty. It's Christmas time, we're looking for a lot of stuff. It's Christmas time, we're looking for a lot of stuff.
Joining me right now is a member of my media host Libsyn, and the Center of Disease Control has listed her as one of the most infectious laughs in the country. It's Elsie Escobar. How you doing?
I'm well. I was like, how does he know the entire house is sick? I was like, how do you even know that? Oh, I'd rather infect people with laughter than with the cough that has taken over my entire family. So,
First, I want to thank you and everybody at Libsyn for such great service and giving me a platform to do what I do. That's why we're doing this show today. And for people who don't know, Libsyn is the industry leader in media hosting, and they provide hosting for me and some of the biggest podcasts out there. Not that I'm including myself in some of the biggest podcasts out there.
you go for it, man. You own that. You own it.
I'm coming for Mark Maron. Libsyn changed the style of their podcast web pages, and they provide the web pages for their customers. I think that happened back in February or March. You can see mine by going to wedon'thavecookies.libsyn.com. When I heard the changes were happening, I couldn't help but to feel like I inspired that. But I want to read you the email exchange that I had with a member of the Libsyn team. I don't know if I should just keep her name out of this, but it started off with me saying, "Howdy, y'all. I wants to update my webpage. It's as ugly as a dog that got kicked by a mule. My only problem being, I can't find any help on y'all's website for such a thing. I knows how to customize it and such, but I want to look real purty like. My friends' Libsyn pages are pretty and shiny as a new quarter laying on the asphalt on a sunny day. They's got all the fancy fixins like calendars and such. I was thinking that maybe I just ain't had my account as long as them fellers, but these looked like, sorry, it's hard for me to read this. There's so many grammatical errors that were purposefully put in there. But they's looked that way not long after they's account got turned on. Mine's been turned on for just over a year, but I got nary such a thing. I'm worried that I won't be taken seriously like my feller podcasters if my webpage keeps looking like it's a-looking. Heck and such, look at hims. And here's a quick plug. I put in the link for the Road Stories podcast hosted by Murray Valeriano on All Things Comedy. And then look at mine's. And then I put my webpage, which is wedon'thavecookies.libsyn.com. Now, I'm a fairly intelligent man of means. Trying to fix this has gotten me more frustrated than an ant at a vegan picnic. If any of yins can help me, I surely would appreciate it. If y'all don't know how to either, I'll understand. Y'all right back now here. And
oh my gosh.
And of course, your team was very, very nice and sent me to the proper places. But at the time, what had happened was the Road Stories podcast had a beautiful website hosted through Libsyn, and it had some features that you have discontinued since. And I was very disappointed because he had a calendar on the side that you could click and look at all the past shows. And since then, you guys have updated your website. They look beautiful. And I want to thank you 8 months later for that.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. But that email, oh my gosh. You guys, you don't even know like the types of things that we get from support. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not in support, so I don't really read a lot of those emails and stuff. But I do get it once in a while. I'll do get some queries that are coming my way. So now it's going to make me doubt people. I'm going to be like, is that for real? Is that person really like that?
My favorite part was towards the end, I tried to make myself I think I spelled it intelligent. That means instead of intelligent. I'm so smart, I spell intelligent a different way than everybody else. That's what high society does.
I'm so smart.
We have a different class of words.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have any crazy stories that you've gotten from customers?
Not like in terms of crazy. I can't really think about specifics, as in like this person did this, but there's a lot of aggro behavior, that makes me get very upset sometimes because people feel like, I think one of the hardest things as a person who works, because I really love Libsyn, I work for Libsyn and I'm not here of course I'm representing Libsyn now, but one of the reasons that I love to work for them is because the team is great and they're not evil. You know what I mean? They're like good people who are just doing their job. And I think sometimes when we get reactions like, you people don't ever do this, or you are just evil because you just changed that. That's awful. And it's the worst thing ever. And sometimes I sit back and I go, do you really think that we are conspiring to make your life miserable? You really feel like that's what we're doing as a company and that we're trying to hide things? And, it's like, no, we're not actually. We might have not done something very well. We tried to cover all our bases to make sure people are okay and informed. And I think that's what it hurts my feelings.
Well, before we get too far away from the story, you said something that reminded me talking about people thinking you're evil.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, after that email exchange, I didn't read the third one. I didn't want it to go too long, but I tried to publish an episode right after that. And
oh no.
You guys just so happen to have a very rare server issue. It hardly ever happens with Libsyn, and it wasn't reported yet at the time. And I couldn't help to wonder if I was being punished.
Oh no. Oh no.
About an hour later, the Libsyn blog was updated that you guys were having server issues. And I thought, oh my God, I really angered somebody over there.
No, and it's so funny because it's like it might feel like that sometimes, and I understand from the like a user perspective. If like let's say I don't know, I'm just coming up with this. So let's say you check your stats once a month or something like that, or maybe you have like I don't know, maybe you publish your episode once a month or something along those lines, so that you come into the system once a month. So that would be like 12 times a year. And then maybe during that year, maybe something was a little off for 2 times of that. So that might feel like it's always happening for you, right? Versus the reality, which is not that. Maybe your experience is that you've just happened to have logged in when this was being a little weird. So, oh no, nobody's going to sit there and like mess up your account. That would take so long to do that. It's not as easy as spitting in somebody's food when you're a server,
Quick podcaster tip. If you're checking your stats once a month, you need to check it about 3 or 4 times a day. That helps them grow. So just throw that out there if you're new.
That helps them grow. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But you don't just work with Libsyn. You have other things going on. You also co-run the largest community for women in podcasting, which is aptly named She Podcast. You want to tell people about that?
Yeah, it just came from a need. We saw a lot of women that wanted a sort of like a quiet space to sort of get together and talk podcasting because we had feelings of feeling a little bit overwhelmed in certain podcasting groups, and because every time we asked a question, we oftentimes got a lot of solutions or answers that we didn't really ask for or that were completely over our head, where it was like, I don't even know what that was. And so we decided, why don't we just come here together and try and figure it out? And amazingly, since 2013, it's now grown to over 8,000 women. So it's like, whoa, it's crazy. It's so huge. And that's a Facebook community, and it's only for women podcasters and only for women who want to have a podcast. So we really try to keep it very, very podcaster centric instead of letting people come in that are interested in podcasting or services that are serving podcasters and things like that. We really want people that have experience have their hands in it to just come in there. So you get that. And then we created a corresponding podcast, which is She Podcast with my co-host, Jessica Kupferman. And She Podcast is not necessarily it doesn't necessarily support the group. It's really just Jess and I discussing podcasting from a women's perspective, not even by choice, but just because we happen to be women. So talking to each other, therefore, it's a women's perspective. And we don't really, there aren't very many sort of like pundits out there that are women in the podcasting space that are talking about it from our point of view. So we bring that to the table with a lot of, we say like She Podcast is about podcasting and 800 other things, because that's usually what ends up happening. So
you've done quite a few movies and TV shows like Walker, Texas Ranger. I forgot this actually was around. I used to watch it all the time. It was one of my guilty pleasures growing up. It was Pamela Anderson's VIP.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you experienced on one of the sets of a movie or TV show that was a funny story?
Oh gosh, I don't know if it was like too many funny stories. I guess behind the scenes kinds of things is like I remember with in the VIP set, and this is all learning stuff, that I did because I did a lot of stage work, and it's vastly different doing stage productions or working in the theater professionally versus working in movies and TV is completely different. And so I remember in VIP when I was doing my scenes with Pamela Anderson, she was never there. I had to do scenes to nothing. So it's so weird because movies and TV is like that so much because everything gets cut together. Mm-hmm. So every time that I had like a scene where I was speaking to her or she was like off to the side, where it was it was my shot, then what happens, especially whenever there's, I guess, a bigger guest or, the lead person in the show, usually that's like time off for them. So that they do your whole side of the conversation by yourself. Like you're speaking to somebody that's on set with the script and you're acting off of them.
And they just kind of stand in a place where she would be if you were looking at her.
And sometimes you get somebody who's in it, meaning they're in the scene with you, like totally working with you. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you just get somebody who's just reading the lines. So you have to essentially do the whole scene as if it actually is happening. And I just, that was very new to me because I've never, when you're on stage, you were in fact acting off of somebody who is in front of you and you are in it. Everybody's in it. All of you guys are creating the environment, the reality of the situation, all of that is there. You're feeding off of each other. You're watching somebody's eyes who's there with you. Whereas with this, it's like you essentially have to do all the work by yourself, regardless of what's happening on the other end. So that's not necessarily funny, but it was like a big whoa, I didn't know that this was the way all this stuff worked.
So that's how you transitioned into podcasting.
Exactly. Since I know exactly. Since no one is actually, here with me anyway, might as well just be behind the mic and do it my way. So,
was there anything you'd like to promote before you go?
Not really. I mean, just, our podcast, The Feed, the official Libsyn podcast with my co-host, Rob Walsh. It's one of the, I'm happy to say it's like one of the most unique podcasts out there because we do bring a lot of like current news and information and analysis as well as information about Libsyn if you so want it. And I really, really try to promote podcasts on that show as much as I can. It's a very community felt show. And She Podcast, even if you're not a woman, we do have a lot of different male listeners. In fact, they're some of our biggest fans. And part of it is that it's interesting to hear these conversations. I guarantee you the things that we come up with to discuss around podcasting, especially like our podcasting gift guide. We just put our gift guide out and it has, I think there's 0 microphones on that list. And I barely could even convince Jessica, my partner, that, Auphonic was like a really great gift for podcasters. Cause it totally is. It's like, and she was like, No, it's not. You should hear her response. You should hear her responses. I mean, both John and I, our producer, because he's also produces a show with us right there, and it's such a bonus to have him as part of our team because he just essentially stays behind the scenes. He sort of runs the board, and then occasionally comes in and talks. But it's great because now he's obviously part of She Podcast. But it's great to have him. Once in a while, we can gang up on Jess and be like, dude, Alphonic is like the best. She was so hilarious. Her responses to that were it's just so funny.
Well, we can gang up on her here now, too, because Alphonic is the best. I love it.
I know.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to wish you, Rob, Crystal, Dave, and the rest of the team over at Libsyn a happy holidays.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks and everybody here too. Thanks for having me on, and happy holidays to you all.
Christmas is here. Where did the time go? Gotta load up the reindeer, put on my red suit and go. I used to like Christmas, but every year it gets worse. Getting gifts to 6 billion people is just too much damn work. I got the Christmas blues. Man, this job is killing me. Most of these stupid new houses don't even have chimneys. I used to be jolly, now I'm depressed. Had a twinkle in my eye, now I wear a bulletproof vest. 'Cause if the paints don't kill me, some gun-toting yahoo will. They keep on shooting at me like I'm sorta big fat red criminal. I got the Christmas blues. I'm starting to see that I gotta be some sort of loser to get paid in milk and cookies. Kids, especially the letters, 'cause I always give them some stuff, man, but they always say they want something better. Or maybe I'm getting cranky 'cause I'm getting old, but I just feel like giving all of those stupid little brats great big lumps of coal. I got the Christmas blues, man. Enough's enough. Some mother sucker to deliver all this stuff. I got the Christmas blues. Oh, I tell you, I'm gonna quit. Gonna find me a steady job with good benefits.
Want to contact the show? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
I'm back with the host of the Fake Advice for New Comics segment and the host of the podcast Comedy A Go-Go, Dave Nelson. You were recently at the Kansas City Comedy Festival. Is there any chance you might be making your way to Ohio to do some stand-up sometime?
That is the dream right now. I don't know. I'm talking to some people, really just one person, and we're trying to make some things happen, but I don't want to jinx it at this point.
Yeah, that would be fun, man. I'd like to see you do your thing up here.
Well, thank you. I would love to be up in Ohio.
In the new year, I think it'd be cool to do a show with you and two local comedians, Mike Canistero and Jessica Grau, since all of you are college professors. I think that could be its own stand-up show if you make it to Dayton.
Well, here we go. Make it happen. Make it happen.
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Before you go, listeners who haven't heard your podcast, Comedy A Go-Go, what's it about and where can people find it?
The podcast is about kind of like my journey, and it's kind of been a theme of like, why do I do stand-up and what do I get out of doing stand-up? And I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk about, what's going to drive the show for 2018, and I got at least a little bit of time to figure that out. But it's kind of a personal journey of stand-up for the last couple of years, and you can find it. You can search for it on iTunes. Just search Comedy A Go-Go. It's on Podbean. It's also on Green Room Podcast Network, and it's played every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Black Sky Radio.
Well, the reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast today is to announce the segment that we hinted at on the Thanksgiving episode. That's ready to go live. And as an early Christmas present to the listeners, here's the newest segment for the podcast, Bad Life Coach by Dave Nelson.
Needing help to remove any obstacles or challenges that might be holding you back from success in your business or personal life? Let me help you create a course of action that will take you to the next level, personally and professionally, with some bad life coaching. Everyone is out to get you.
There are only 3 things on every episode of the podcast. That's me, the intro music, and my last guest for the episode, Maya. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. You don't just do the intro to the show. You've done a lot of intros to segments. You give out the contact info. Mm-hmm. And you were the first bailiff ever on an episode of Martial Law. But
was I?
Yeah.
Yes, I was. I just remember that. That's true.
So I guess my next news may not be as impactful as I thought. As most listeners know, this is the first time you're hearing it. You have been replaced as the bailiff for the Martial Law episodes now.
We're done, Jason. It's over. I'm telling you why. Who the hell replaced me?
I think you might appreciate it. It was UFC Hall of Famer Dan the Beast Severn.
Literally never heard of them. Like, what am I supposed to cheer now or something? They're better than me. Come on, please. So, are they doing okay at it? Please tell me no.
I haven't had a case yet to bring him in. So, I think it was me and Kenny were talking about it on another episode because he knows about it before you. But
Kenny kept a secret. He's literally never done that before.
That's very bizarre.
I don't know if I should be happy or depressed. It's just, wow, so much.
We talked about doing a bailiff versus bailiff episode. And I got a tweet that said, if it's going to be bailiff versus bailiff, who's going to be the bailiff? So I asked Ronda Rousey, but she hasn't got back to me, and I'm sure she will any day now.
Oh, yeah. Just keep on hoping, Jason. You got this, boy.
Well, Maya, I haven't done this in a while on the show, but I got a question from my last guest.
Okay.
The question is, when it comes to ingredients, what is a deal breaker? So someone is making a dish and everything sounds good, and they add blank, and you go, oh, no thanks.
I would have to say mushrooms. I detest mushrooms. Actually, not for the taste, because I like mushroom sauce. It's for the look. They make me aggressive. When I see mushrooms out in the wild, I just have to stomp them. So I don't know if I hated the Smurfs when I was a kid or something. I detest mushrooms. They're parasites to me. So to me, putting mushrooms in food is like putting mold in food. So no, that's a deal breaker. I'm definitely not doing that.
This is why I was looking for a female bailiff for the bailiff versus bailiff episode, because I knew you were the one I had to worry about.
You know me so well. Yeah, well, as long as that UFC fighter is not one of the Smurfs or a mushroom, I should be okay. I promise I won't be too hard on them.
Well, we're going to wind things down by doing a segment that I'm trying to do every week like I'm supposed to, but last month I only did it once. So the person who was nominated, they just won by default. But it's this week's Perumpadum Dumbass of the Year. Goes out to a delivery worker in China who was caught on camera falling into a fish pond inside of a hotel when he wasn't watching where he was going because he was reading the info on the bag of food that he was supposed to deliver.
Wow, that sounds like something I would do.
If you can see this video, it's spectacular because the guy is just reading whatever's on the bag. He doesn't see the pond and he trips on the edge of the pond. His entire body just goes like he did a belly flop into a pool. And you can see all the fish just fly up to the front trying to get away.
Oh my God, I don't know who to feel sorry for, the guy or the fish.
But the guy gets out and he's clearly in shock because his entire body is soaking wet. And then he realizes, oh wait, the thing I'm supposed to deliver is soaking wet too. And he's trying to, pun intended, fish it out of the pond. It was great.
I'd love to be that person who received that, because you know for a fact he did not tell him what actually happened. You would probably rather tell him that someone peed on it before he told him I fell into a pond. I would love to hear what excuse he came up with.
You know what's funny is it's in the lobby of the hotel, and the guy gets out of the pond, picks up the bag, goes and walks up to the front desk and just sits the bag down. I'm hoping he's going to call his manager or somebody to let him know. But he could have just left it there and had him ring up the room that it went to. You never know.
Wow. Can you imagine if you're waiting for a package and you're out in the lobby and you see your delivery guy fall into a pond? That is worth more than the package itself. Just that experience of seeing him.
That is very true.
I'm glad they got that on camera.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to promote before you go? Your Instagram or Twitter, anything like that?
Twitter is, oh God, what is my Twitter? I sound like an 80-year-old. I don't keep up with social media very often, but it's at the Maya Doodle. And in fact, Instagram is the same. Thank God, because I'd never remember two different ones. But yeah, I'm generally on Instagram a lot. A lot of boob shots, a lot of butt shots. No, I'm kidding. Not in front of Kenny. But yeah, everybody follow me on Instagram. I do funny things here and there, mostly serious things. I'm a very serious person. I mostly just laugh at delivery boys all the time. That's about it.
Well, thanks for coming on this episode. And I want to thank everybody for downloading the show. If you're listening to this on Twitter or Facebook, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and anywhere podcasts are available. That's it for this episode. I'll be back on Thursday. Have a good week.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.